So for this insertion, it's going to be a little bit different than the previous ones. Insertion sort is a sorting algorithm, and it treats the input, so our array, as two parts, a sorted part and an unsorted part. We're going to repeatedly insert the next value from our unsorted part into the correct location in the sorted part. So we're going to move it from unsorted to sorted. So inside of here, first thing that we're going to do is we are going to do a print line. And we've done this for every single one just to say what the method is. We're going to do a insertion sorted array. And then we can come down below here. And then what we're going to do is have a for loop. And previously we've gone over the rows, right? Well, now we want to go over the columns. So we're going to do int and a is equal to 1. We don't need to look at the first part because we're going to assume that the first part is sorted. And if it's not, we're just going to sort it while we look at the other ones. So int a is equal to 1, and we're going to run this as long as a is less than our column, and then we're going to do a plus plus. So we're going to come down here, and now we're going to do a little bit, but we're going to explain a lot of it. So we're going to insert at array row -1 a, and this is going to be into the sorted part. So basically what we're saying is row -1 is this last row, this fifth row, and we're going to be looking at the first value right here. We're going to move it into the sorted part, so we're going to compare it to this one, and we're going to stop this only once our array is in the correct position. Now from here we're going to make a for loop. This for loop is kind of complex, has a lot in it. So what we're going to be saying is we're going to have a for, we're going to do int b, and this is equal to a. It's equal to a because once we've moved it into a sorted part, once we have this sorted, we don't need to look back at it. We're going to run this as long as b is greater than 0. And then we're going to have our and. We're going to do our array. Now we want this in the last row, so we're going to do row -1. And then our specific column is going to depend on which b we're currently looking at. So we're going to have b. And then we're going to run this as long as it is less than the array column, or the row doesn't matter. So we're just going to do row -1. We're going to be in the same row. And then we're going to have b -1. And this is going to compare it to the previous position. And then we're just going to have a b minus. And so having our b minus, we can eventually hit 0, and then we'll break from this for loop. So that's what that for loop will look like. We're going to swap our array, last row, and then whatever specific position we're looking at, and we're going to swap the array row -1 with the b -1. We're going to continuously swap until this value, so let's say this value, is less than the values before it. And that is again why we don't need to compare the first one. So that's what we're going to swap for. We're going to need a for loop to get through each and column. So we're going to use a for loop, and we're going to look through all of these. So inside of here, we're going to have an int c is equal to 0, and this, remember, this c is equal to 0 is going to be run as long as c is less than row. We've previously done column, and that's because we're looking at all of these columns. However, we're going to want to be moving these rows. So this insertion sort is a little bit different, completely the opposite actually, as these, because we're looking at it horizontally instead of vertically. And now we're going to do C++, and then inside of here, we're just going to perform our swap. So we're going to make a temporary value. We're going to do int temp, and this is equal to the array, and our row is going to be C, it's dependent on C, and then we're going to have our column BB. And then we're going to set this value, which is written incorrect, that is a syntax error, that should be out there. We're going to set this value equal to this value. And so we'll paste this in here, and this row -1 should just be C because we are dependent on here. And then we're going to have a semicolon. Next we are going to set this value, we're going to set this value because we put this value in here, and now we need to put something in here. We're going to set this value equal to our temp value. Now that we have this, we can just print. So we're going to call our toString method, which we made, and we're going to print that. So we'll come back up here. This is the code for the output. We're going to run it. We see we have initial, bubble, selection, shell, insertion, and initial. Our initials look the same, so that's good. And now we can look at the insertion. We have 4, 7, 9, 10, and all the rows, if we were to check them, look like they have switched properly. And so that is our code done. That's all of the sorting done. We can remove our test right here. However, there's one last thing we need to do. And that last thing is we need to search the 5th row for the user number.